Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of the Ilizwi Moja Africa podcast. My name is Heri Rianga, and I am a leadership coach and author from Kenya. Allow me to introduce my co hosts. We have Silindile Mdembu, a political scientist from South Africa, and we also have Ginile Nzinisa, who is an ecologist from the Kingdom of Eswatini.
So, thank you for tuning into our podcast. We just wrapped up a series on decolonization in May. It was a 4-part series that saw us discussing decolonization in various aspects, such as our minds, our culture, conservation, and our African economies. Today, we want to start a new series on leadership that will take us to the end of the year.
And before we start, please follow us on Twitter at Ilizwi Moja, on Facebook at Ilizwi Moja to continue our conversations. Like our videos and subscribe to our channel. Also feel free to comment as we continue with our discussion. We'd like to hear your thoughts.
So, as earlier said, today we are going to talk about leadership. Now, going through our decolonization series, we found that at the heart of the matter was a failure of some sort in leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership, as they say. So, this podcast will be a discussion about what leadership is and what it looks like in the African context. And I think that's where we are going to begin with our first question. What is leadership? Is it about titles and position? What is leadership?
Thank you for this question, Harry. I find that this is such an intriguing question because I feel like when I was little, I thought that leadership was, those big guys up there who are like scary and intimidating, and they just use their titles to take advantage of people. And so there's always that image of leadership not necessarily being a positive influence in my understanding. But leadership in itself, if you look into like aspects of leadership that sounds good, it's freedom fighters, especially in our context, or leadership could be in business or even in family as well. We find that leadership is essentially on how you uphold yourself, how you have this sense of followership, how people follow you, how you are able to lead as a person, how your form of leadership could be, whether it's a sort of autocratic kind of style, or maybe it's a more democratic or charismatic kind of style leadership. So it's different from my original perspective when I was younger, but that's kind of, the different variations of leadership.
And I totally agree with John Maxwell, because for me, it's all about influence. If you are able to influence, like Slee has already said, the different leadership style, it's all about influencing those people to follow you, to follow your vision. So for me, it's definitely about all the being able to inspire people and guide them towards a common goal or a vision, to make people understand what your vision is all about and have people follow you. And all of that, it's just centered around being able to influence, motivate and empower people to to follow this vision that you have. And for that to be able, for you to be able to do that, you must be able to be someone who's clear with communication, because the people need to understand what you are trying to achieve, what your vision is. And for you to get that, it goes back to being able to influence them through I'm just naming one of the elements of using clear communication. But I think at the end of the day, the crucial elements of a true leader, it's through integrity, responsibility, and accountability. So for me, it's definitely influence, but also accompanied by being able to exhibit these other elements like integrity and accountability.
Thank you so much, ladies. I love where the discussion is going. So we can see that leadership, it is about influence, it is about casting a vision and helping the people who are under you understand this vision and follow you. So it follows that there must be good leadership and bad leadership, because we see situations where, well, the leaders who are there are just failing to help the people who are under them to understand where the company is going, or a business, or even a country, and then they're not able to achieve whatever set goals they are supposed to. So, what is the difference between good leadership and bad leadership? Is being a boss the same as being a leader? What do you think about that?
Yes, that is actually quite a good question because I mean, just looking at what the quote here by Peter Drucker is that the only definition of a leader is someone who has followers. And that is quite interesting because even a boss, to an extent, has followers. But, you know, when we think about followership, we think about willing individuals who are able to be led by that leader. You know, individuals who believe, as Gunilla was saying, believe in the vision of that leader and are able to follow that leader. And that particular leader is considered to be a good leader if they have, you know, followership. And so a boss, to an extent, they can be a leader. It depends, because I think we have a sort of negative connotation when it comes to a boss. You know, we find that a boss is, you know, somebody that is, you know, just not willing to engage with you or not willing to hear your concerns or issues. But if you have a boss who's able to be more adaptable, you know, be more who has, you know, communication skills and all the good qualities that are required, then that boss can essentially be a good leader. And so, you know, a good leader leads by example. A good leader is able to be respectful, is able to engage with their followers. But a bad leader is somebody who is, you know, disrespectful, who's not willing to engage, who's not willing to communicate, who's not willing to, you know, perhaps sacrifice certain, you know, privileges that they have for the good of others. So I would say that that would be the difference between a good leader and a bad leader.
And I totally agree with you, Slee, because we've already said that, you know, a leader is supposed to inspire, you know, influence and do all of those things. And a leader is not supposed to be authoritative as compared to a manager, as compared to a boss, because most of the time bosses are managers. They manage people, they control people to achieve, you know, that specific goal. So they are very authoritative and try to focus on enforcing the rules so that if you are late, you know, a boss will be like trying to tell you that you shouldn't be doing this and what's not and what's not. As compared to being a leader, you're trying to motivate that person, to influence that person, and to guide that person to be a better person. So for me, then good leadership, it comes from someone who's willing to learn and unlearn things. Learn in the sense that you seek out, you know, mentors, you seek out good opportunities for you to learn leadership skills, like we did with the Mandela Fellowship. Because we seek out an opportunity for us to explore and learn, you know, different leadership skills, communication skills, and everything that helped us with our development, I mean, with our personal and professional development in terms of the leadership aspects of things, but also to unlearn, you know, these toxic leadership qualities that we grew up looking up to. For an instance, you enforce your ideas to people. You don't consult with anyone because you are the leader, you are the chairperson, you are whatsoever. So it's your way and no other way. So it just goes into different things like as I've mentioned, seeking out opportunities for you to learn and unlearn, you know, practice self-reflection. I always tell people that I like reflecting on myself just to check how I feel, but also to ask people like, what do you think about this? Or actually to think about, I could have handled that situation better, because it helps me own my strengths and weaknesses as a leader, you know, seeking feedback. Recently, we're doing a change management training at work. And one of the activities was that someone was supposed to give you a feedback, and you're not supposed to say anything but accept that feedback. Because oftentimes, as leaders, because of most of the time we make the decisions, so we tend to think that it's our decisions are the last thing. You're not supposed to question it. So when somebody tells you that you are stubborn, you're definitely going to go for what you call attack mode. Not really attack mode, self-defense. Yes, you're going to go just straight to defense mode, and you tend to miss out on what the message was coming from. Why would that particular person, that employee or whosoever person comes up and say that I'm stubborn. So it is important for a good leader to actually take some time and self-reflect and think about all of those things. I don't want to go to the bad leadership qualities, because I feel like then it's the opposite of what I'm talking about right now. So I think basically you can be a boss if you're a leader, but not all bosses can be leaders.
All right, ladies. So, from what I am finding, a good leader is somebody who's willing to grow, somebody who's willing to unlearn bad leadership traits or thought processes, and is also willing to guide the team that is under them, as well as create an environment for their followers to grow, learn, and be creative so that they can also be able to explore their different interests and in the pursuit of the common goal. Like, we don't want these leaders who micromanage your every move. You give them breathing space so that they can be able to actualize themselves at work. I guess that's and of course, so the bad leader is the person who does not do this, the micromanager, the my way or the highway, the
Basically.
authoritarian, as Nile was saying. All right, so I'm liking this. So now that is just leadership in general and good and bad leadership. Now for the clincher. What does leadership in Africa look like? And here's what I'm asking. This is more in the political arena leadership style. Why do we have leaders who are clinging to power for decades? Like I won't say most, but some African countries, we have pseudo monarchs, dynasties. You know, you're there for like 60 years, and when so you die and then your son takes over. How come some of our leaders they're put there as puppets for maybe foreign powers? You know, how come African leaders are we incapable of fledging solid leaders who are actually going to be out for the interests of the Africans? So, what does African leadership look like, really?
Yes, it looks like people who want money. It's all about money. But you know what, though? I honestly do resonates with what you're saying, Harry, that we have these pseudo monarchs, we have, African leaders who hold on to power so much. And I think that's the thing, is that power can be so intoxicating. It can be so attractive, and so you end up just clinging onto it, and therefore the next generations cling onto that same power. And it's that lineage of, a corrupt form of governance, or, a corrupt form of leadership that's there because of the fact that people cling onto leadership for the wrong reasons. They don't cling onto leadership to better African citizens. They cling onto leadership to better themselves. And so that's something that we have to, break down in society. We have to break those kind of issues down, especially because our freedom fighting leaders back then, their priority was African lives. Their priority was the future generation. The priority was just growing the African society. And then once we had freedom, it was like, okay, well, then there's all these issues of corruption, and these issues of, foreign powers essentially just taking control of us, getting into our heads. And so leadership, I wouldn't say per se that leadership in Africa is kind of like dismal, and there's nothing that we can do about it, and that we just in a very dire situation, but rather that leadership is a work in progress, which would not necessarily be the better way to describe it, but it's definitely, it depends how that progression is, because once we are in this place of freedom, we fought for our rights, and we are now here. And then it's almost like that leadership that we held on to during the times of our freedom fighting days is kind of crumbling. And yet we are in the process of building leaders, young leaders, who are able to actually, focus on African lives. And so that's why I would say that it is a work in progress, because we are building those young leaders. And so leadership right now in Africa looks very, very hazy. And I think that's why we need those platforms where we can be able to strip the old form of governance or the kind of like, um, the corruptive leaders. We have to strip those kind of foundations apart. As young individuals, we need to be able to bring in a form of leadership that is, driven to empower others, to empower African citizens. And so it's a very ongoing situation, ongoing process when it comes to leadership in Africa. And so right now, it looks like just a work in progress at this point.
Yeah, yes, we are moving because we are moving towards something. I would like to believe that. I like to
Mm,
believe that the reason why we are here today talking about this thing, it's one of the steps that we're taking towards moving, taking steps towards moving to a space whereby we have, the good kind of leadership in Africa. And on top of that, just to answer the question, we are hungry, slambile. Like we are
mm,
hungry.
mm,
We
mm,
are hungry for so many things. We are hungry for food. We are hungry for power. We
mm,
are hungry for development. It's a lot of things. So it's
mm,
really hard for people to get to be in these good positions to strip out, the different levels of hunger or the different types of hunger that they have, if that
mm,
even makes sense. Because you
mm,
get to a position, a leadership position, and you're like, for so long I've seen the people who came before me living this lavish lifestyle. So it's my time. It's my time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm also going to do all of these things. And you have people who get to leadership positions because they are hungry. They just want to take every chance that they get. I think that's one of the socio-economic factors that come into place when you talk about leadership in Africa. People operating from a space of poverty and a space of hunger, a space of greediness. That's why we have corruption. Personally, I think this factor really has had an impact into our leadership in Africa. But more than that, I like to think that I'm not going to touch on the foreign powers, like Slee has already mentioned, because we had a lengthy discussion on colonization in the previous podcast. But I would like to talk about education and basically economic development as well. I like to think, thanks to the innovation technology, now we're able to actually see what's happening in other countries, and because for the longest time you think that you're having it worse in your country, and then you Google something about some other country, like, no ways, no ways can these people live in such conditions, you know. And I think with that comes education. People are now able to explore and understand things better than they did a few years ago. And I'll also say that education for the longest time, but personally, that this is a very subjective opinion, it was used to oppress the people. Like, if you don't know something, I can come up and tell you and make up something completely different, but you believe me because I say that I'm a master's student or I'm a PhD person, so I'm a doctor. So take what I have to give you. So I can literally influence you into believing this vision, into believing into this vision that I have, because the type of respect that we have for educated people in our rural communities, it has been used to manipulate and use people for benefits of other bad leaders, what I call. But also, appreciating that times have changed, and now we have so many leadership platforms. We have so many people that we can hold accountable in different platforms because of the education that we have now, to know better about good governance. One of the key factors that has come into effect in terms of people having the being cushioned to clinging into leadership position for so long is because of our cultural background. My God, I come from a country whereby you're not supposed to question your elder. It's taboo. You're not supposed to do that. Just take it as it is. And on top of that, you're not even supposed to look him straight in the eye when you're talking to that person. Things like that. And you take them so lightly. But we come from a space whereby there's high value placed upon respect for authority. Tradition, our culture is making it difficult to challenge established leaders and institutions. So we end up, taking it to circling with the status quo because it's just unheard of. So I would think there's so many reasons why we are in this space. There's so many reasons why we're in this space, but there is a way to get out of it. And I'll go back to us being empowered, young people being empowered to know better about leadership, developing their skills and understanding, good governance amongst other things.
Wow, what a robust discussion. I think I am going to summarize what has been said by a quote from Harry Truman, one of the presidents in America, and this is what he said: "Men make history and not the other way around. In periods where there is no leadership, society stands still. Progress occurs when courageous, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better." And I think from our discussion, we can conclude that that is the kind of leadership that we need in Africa. We need people who are able to be courageous and give vision to their organizations, their companies, their families, the nation at large, so that we can be able to change for the better as a nation, as a society, and as Africa at large. So, as we conclude, ladies, do we have any last remarks?
From my side, nothing much, just that I want us to be reflective as to what kind of leaders we would like to be, and to also look towards what kind of leaders we would like to follow. Yes.
I think from my end, it would be we really need to address the underlying structural issues that contribute to our current, you know, um, leadership challenges. And for us to get there, we need to strengthen once we understand that, then we need to strengthen our institutions, invest in our people, really invest in our people so that we can have a good leadership in Africa.
Thank you so much, ladies. Leadership starts with you and me. I guess it's also about us being role models as leaders wherever we are. And hopefully, there'll be a chain reaction in our communities or societies and our nation at large. Thank you so much, our listeners, for joining us today. We hope the discussion was engaging and thought provoking. Do not forget to like and comment and to subscribe. So be on the lookout for our next episode in our leadership series, Women in Leadership. Bye, everyone.